am recapping today, my friends. Yes, you may have heard, you may have seen, I've been sharing. I was recently in Nashville to celebrate 40 years, my husband's 40th birthday. There were some surprises, there was some cool stuff involved. And so I am recapping that trip today for you. I did shout out on Instagram if anyone had any questions to ask me anything. And so I'm going to be answering those. And I'm going to be going over the reason for the trip, my intentions behind it, a journal entry that I made to really solidify that idea and that belief. And then I'm going to go into the people, the places, the positives, as well as the don'ts, the things that I do not recommend, maybe some of the best and maybe some of the not so good stuff about Nashville. And I also really want to tie in a little bit of mindset work of how we got there and how my intention really helped set that trip together. So if that sounds good, let's give it a big old yeehaw and let's dive right in.
Hey, I'm Andryanna, and this is the Juggle is Real podcast. As I share my ongoing journey from experiencing burnout to leading a more mindful and intentional life with better balance, I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started.
Okay. So we are talking all things Nashville today, but really at the heart and at the core of what I want you to hear. Maybe you've been to Nashville, maybe you're interested in going, and so you want to kind of get that idea and that sense of like some of the cool things to go to or what I really liked. And I'm definitely going to be getting into that. But what I would really love for you to hear within this episode is how I made this trip come to be, how I used some of the laws of the universe. And I'm going to be talking from Raymond Holliwell's book, Working with the Law, about the thoughts, about my intentions, about how you can create whatever it is that you are hoping. Maybe it's a trip, maybe it's a visit somewhere special, maybe it's concert tickets for yourself or your spouse or a friend, whatever that might be. I want you to think of how you can create whatever it is that you want to create through what I'm going to share today. So there's going to be a little bit about mindset, a little bit about how I made this come to life, and how it was once just an idea, once just a lofty goal. And then I want to talk about some of the nitty gritty, some of the things we did, some of the things I recommend, don't recommend, and all of that good stuff. So just to begin, first of all, I've got my Nashville t-shirt on. So just throwing that out there. You probably can't see it if you're listening in, but I've got it on. So I'm feeling my Nashville vibes. And I just want to say by starting off that I don't consider myself a huge country music person. It's not been something that I grew up with, listening to country music. And in the more recent years, I've become more attuned to that style of music. And I think that the style of country music has changed a lot. Like there's a lot of different variation within the genre. And I definitely like it a lot more. And there's a lot of music that I listen to now that maybe I wouldn't have in the past. But the reason for taking this trip really started with a conversation that I had with my husband. So this is going back to December of 2023 when we were talking about the holidays, talking about what we wanted to do with our family. And I had mentioned that I would like to go on a family trip. And, we were looking at our hockey schedules and coaching and just life in general and seeing where we might be able to fit something like that in. And then the conversation came up that, wow, we're both turning 40 in 2024. So we're both born in 1984. And well, we actually went to school together in grade 7 and 8. That's how we met. And we were talking about what we might want to do. And my idea was like relaxation. I wanted time to sit beside a pool. I wanted to just like really dig into a book. I wanted to relax. I wanted to just have fun in a carefree type of way. And Ryan, not really one for sitting still. Just like, he was all for the having fun, the carefreeness. Um, but he was thinking of something a little bit more lively, something that wasn't definitely not an all inclusive. He's not an all inclusive type of person. He always has to be on the go and always has to be moving. So, in that conversation, he mentioned that he'd always wanted to have taken a trip to Nashville, and that was something that he was interested in. So, that conversation we had, no plans were made, no like next steps were set forth, but that sort of seed was planted in my mind. So in January, I was, just doing some thinking, knowing our birthdays were coming up. His birthday fell before mine. It falls before mine in the calendar year. And so I was trying to think of what we could do and what might be fun to do. And so this idea, this tiny little thought of what about a trip to Nashville came up. And another little idea of something else came up for me. And so this takes us to a few years ago when my brother was getting married, and Ryan told me about this artist that he had come to fall in love with, and his name is Zach Bryan, and how he found out that he was performing in a smaller venue at a music festival in Ottawa called Blues Fest. It's a festival that my husband has been to many times. It was once an annual occurrence before we had 3 kids and a busy family life. And so he said, I'd really love to go see this concert. Zach Bryan's playing at Blues Fest. And unfortunately for him, it was happening the day before my brother's wedding at the time. So this was 2022 when they got married. So our youngest, Zach, what a coincidence in the name. But anyway, our youngest was still just a baby. My brother was getting married out of town in Muskoka, and I was standing in the wedding. And so he said, I'll just go to Ottawa for this concert and then I'll meet you at the wedding. And I said, heck no, not a chance, not even a shred of hope for you, my love. You're not going, and I'm not packing up for our whole family and traveling to the wedding and going to the rehearsal dinner and all those things. I need you there. So unfortunately, that dream was not realized by my husband of going to see Zach Bryan. And I said, hun, like next time this guy comes around, I didn't even know who he was at the time. Next time he comes to Canada, you can go see him. Like no holds barred. He's all yours. And little did I know that this, country singer who was sort of up and coming would totally blow up. And then the next time we would hear about him coming to Canada was for this like crazy stadium tour. And when I learned of his new tour dates, I checked for when he would be coming to Toronto. That's the closest venue to where we live in Northern Ontario. And he had 2 dates back to back in Toronto at the largest facility. And it was St. Patrick's Day, March 17th and March 18th. March 17th, we were in Timmins for a hockey tournament. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll get him tickets for his birthday, March 18th. And then the little seed of Nashville, the little seed of Zach Bryan fizzled together in my brain to say, what I wonder when he's playing in Nashville. I did not tell Ryan any of this at all. It just like did a quick search. I noticed, okay, June 29th, Zach Bryan, he's playing in Nashville, and sort of like let this thought sort of permeate, if you will. I wrote in my journal, and if you are into goal setting, you might know this, this tool made popular by Bob Proctor, who was a mentor of my coach, Hina Khan. And so it's a way of setting a goal for yourself. If you have no idea what you want, how you're going to reach a goal, they call it a C-type goal. Some people call it a big, hairy, audacious goal. it's something that you have no idea how you'll actually achieve, but something that would be so amazing. And so you write it in the first person as if it is happening or as if it's already happened. And so I wrote in my journal, and this was at the very beginning of February. I'm so happy and grateful now to be home during the summer holidays, taking the majority of the summer off with my family after taking a incredible trip to Nashville to celebrate Ryan's birthday and having gone to the Zach Bryan concert. And, there were more details in there, but that's really the long and short of it. And it was this little idea that I really didn't know how to bring into existence, because there were a few things, like one being, hey, we've got 3 kids. So, we're going to need to make sure someone's taking care of that. 2, June 29th was actually, it was a Saturday. It's actually Ryan's sister's birthday. And so it would mean that we'd have to leave at least one day early. And that would have been the last day of school. And, as a mom, I've never missed the last day of school for my kids before. So there were some thoughts around that. And then, of course, since Ryan wanted to go to Blues Fest to see Zach Bryan play, which he said the tickets were like $60 Canadian. He probably would have been like front row center. The ticket prices have since gone up, and the prices are more expensive. So I didn't know the how, but I just thought I would love this. I would love to be able to have this experience. I would love to do this trip. And so that was the journal entry. And I just want to quickly, before I get into this Nashville stuff, suggest and invite you to think about what would you love? What would be cool if you have these like little thoughts popping in your head, like I did, like, hey, maybe a trip is in a desire that you have, maybe a concert, maybe it's, a family vacation, whatever it is. If you have this thought, if you have this idea, what I've learned is that you would not have the idea unless it was possible for you. Okay. So I'm going to say that again, because I feel like we don't realize how powerful our thoughts are. So if you have the thought, if you have a desire that you would love something, anything, just having that thought and just having that inkling, that little nudge, that little desire means that it is possible for you to have it in the physical. And so I look to Raymond Hollywell's Working with the Law. It's a book that I'm studying right now in a book club. And I'm going to look to page 15 in a chapter called Working with the Law. It's right at the beginning. But it says, you are the master of your circumstance. Call forth your power, initiative, and ingenuity, and be the master. Fate is in your hands. Determine it. And then a little bit down, it says, if all conditions are the results of our actions, and all actions are the outcome or the fruit of our ideas, then our ideas must determine the conditions in our daily lives. Our ideas must determine the conditions of our daily lives. Okay, so again, going over a couple pages here to page 22, it says, let such a one form his or her own clear conceptions and strong convictions from the loftiest point of view he or she can reach, and then proceed to think and act accordingly. Okay, so it comes from the thought. And then from that thought, from that place of like this trip to Nashville, these concert tickets, what are some actions that you might take? And then let that happen. So for me, this idea of this trip, I didn't know how, I didn't know, all of the details. I let it come together, but I didn't just think, that would be nice and leave it as is. I allowed ideas to come to me, and then I moved on those ideas and I moved into action. So some of those things were, okay, well, Ryan wanted to have a party for his birthday. Well, why don't I have a surprise party? And all sorts of people were asking me, like, what would Ryan love? What can I get him for a gift? And I thought, then another idea came to me. Well, what if we all pitch in and get him the Zach Bryan tickets? Like, what if that could be a group gift that everyone could pitch in for instead of just being a gift for me because all these people want to get him something, right? And then his parents have always wanted to go to Nashville. So, well, why don't we invite his parents? And Ryan knew none of any of this. This was all a surprise to him. Well, what if Ryan's parents came? And then Ryan's mom offered to purchase the tickets as a birthday gift for our flights. Well, what and so it grew from there, and we moved into action in small ways, talking to other people, doing all these little things, and then it all came together in a way that flowed with so much ease. And now I can say, being on the other side of it, that my journal entry has come to life and it's come to fruition, and in ways that I completely didn't expect. I didn't expect, people to pitch in for a gift. I didn't expect Ryan's parents to purchase our flights. None of these things was I like, this is how it has to happen. Right. But when you're open to it, when you have that thought, and when you're willing to move into action on those ideas, it can come together even better than you could have even dreamed. But it all starts with having that desire and making it an intention to create. Okay, let's now get into some of the fun stuff about the trip. So you kind of know my intention behind it, how we got there, the story of the tickets. Ryan had to wait a little extra longer. And overall, my impression of Nashville was that it is a really, really wonderful place. I would definitely go back. I think that for all walks of life, all age groups, I think aside from children, I mean, I'm sure there's things for kids, but for the type of trip we took, I saw kids walking up and down at Broadway in like the evening, and I just felt bad for them. I would not bring my children unless they were older. Wayne said he's going to bring our boys when they turn 21. We'll leave him up to that. But my overall impression was that it is a really, really fun place. I now understand why it is the largest, the fastest growing city in all of America right now. And I totally understand why it is the number one destination for bachelorettes, because you cannot throw a stick without hitting a bride in Nashville, especially downtown. So many bachelorettes, and everyone looked like they're having such a blast. But I will say, we went with Ryan's parents, and we went with another couple of friends who are our age. It is great for all types of people. I told you I wasn't a huge country fan. Our friend grew up, Stacy, she grew up listening to all of the classics, country music. And then her partner, who's Ryan's friend, he never listens to country. We all had so much fun. We all had a blast. So that's who we went with. Ryan and I brought his parents, and then one of his best friends came with his partner. And I would say, as a group of 6, that was a really good number, because 6 is the max for an Uber, right? If you get the Uber XL, like a minivan or an SUV. And so it was really easy to get around. It was easy to go places. But I know if you're in a larger group, for instance, in like a bachelorette party, you can rent larger buses and ways to get around. Or you can, if you're going places, you can get more than one Uber or taxi. But 6, I felt, was a really good number. It was a good group. We could get a table at bars and restaurants, and all sit together. And then in terms of like people wanting to do things and opinions, it's kind of nice to have like 3 couples or 6 people. So that's who we went with. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our home and our family and our kids, and how we managed to take this trip, missing the last few days of school, leaving without our family. And so we're so fortunate, and we're so grateful and appreciative to have extremely supportive family members. And I'll say, when we go on hockey tournaments, when we go away, Ryan's parents are usually the first ones to stand up and to say, like, we'll take the boys, or whomever is not playing hockey at the time. So they're always like the most reliable and most amazing, incredible people to support us with our family. And they're coming with us. And so they're like, well, we don't have to come. We can babysit the boys while you go. But we wanted them to be there with us. And so we're like, okay, let's see. Do we have a plan B? Is there anyone else? Ryan's sisters were also so amazing and so helpful. But like I mentioned, it was one of his sister's birthdays. So to pile on 3 kids, we just didn't feel like that was fun to spend your birthday watching. She also has 3 kids. And then Ryan's other sister, she's a teacher. And so like the last few days of school are the last few days of school. I have 3 siblings, and I just put it out there, like, if we took this trip, would anyone be willing to help us out with the boys? And they like stood up and they were like, absolutely. My brother Nick and my sister-in-law Allie came from out of town just to watch the kids. And so it's incredible, first and foremost, to be able to ask for help. So I will put that out there. And I know everyone's circumstances are different, and I know everyone has, different comfort levels with asking for help. But to be able to just throw it out there and ask for support is the first step in actually getting the support that you desire. But also, I will say that my brothers and sisters-in-law, my youngest brother, Stephen, and his partner, Emily, also babysat the kids. My parents had them over for dinner and for swims most of the evenings. Everyone sort of banded together to support us. And so for that, we're forever grateful. I may or may not have had a 10-page document with all of the kids' routines and things to feed them and things to do and all sorts of different things. But they did such an amazing job. So just putting that out there, the number one parenting tip that I receive that I hold so near and dear to my heart is to give people permission to love your children like you do. And being around other people when your kids are there is beautiful and it's wonderful. And of course, they can make incredible bonds. But having one-on-one time with your kids, whether you have a babysitter or a daycare or a nursery school, or you have family members or friends, giving them that opportunity to have that time with your kids is such a gift for them as well. And so if you shift your perspective to be able to not only ask for support, but to be able to receive the help that you require and desire, that is sometimes 9/10 of that law, is to be able to ask and receive that help, and to be able to give your children the opportunity to have that quality time. My kids had a countdown going for when their aunties and uncles were going to be with them. They had all these ideas, and I'm in tears right now, by the way. So, but they had such special times, and they did things with the boys that we would not have done. I mean, they brought them to the beach, and they walked to school, and they brought them to like trampoline parks and laser tag and mini putt and driving range and golfing. And they did all baking. Like, I don't bake with my kids. And Zach and my sister-in-law were baking banana bread, and he was so fired up. So if you have the opportunity, if there are people in your life that you trust even enough to give them that chance to, and I'm not saying leave for 4 days, maybe it's an afternoon, give them that opportunity on both ends. I think it's a win all across the board. So I think my family, I think those who came with us on the trip, I think those who supported our family while we were away, yeah, it was really, really special. We feel really fortunate, and we feel so grateful. Back to Nashville, let's talk about some of the places. Let's talk about some of the fun stuff. If you've never been to Nashville, really the downtown hub is the place with all the action. There's so many other things that you can do, but that's really what I'm going to focus on. A question did come in about where we stayed and if I would recommend staying there again. We stayed at a newer hotel. It just opened earlier this year, called Motif on Music Row. We loved it. Loved it. It's about a 5-minute Uber from the downtown, 20-minute walk. So depending on, your comfort level for walking and driving, it is a really, really great spot. It's like more apartment style. So we had laundry in our unit. We had a balcony. We had 2 bathrooms, a full kitchen, a living space, ensuite. It was really, really nice. what we really loved about it was that the housekeeping, you could just text them. So like if we wanted more coffee pods in the morning, if we wanted housekeeping to come to clean our rooms. So it felt sort of like an Airbnb, but just a little bit more elevated because we had that ability to call on housekeeping to ask for those little additional things. And the other really, really great thing is that they have a rooftop pool, which was so, so refreshing. And it really fulfilled my initial desire from the story I talked about earlier to be able to have some moments to relax, to dig into a book, to get that refresh and that reset that I really desire. So on the days we were away, we did sort of like an afternoon swim and rest in between our day. And that really helped me recharge. I know it was super refreshing, even for my husband who doesn't like to stay still. Like he loves swimming. It was hot. I'm going to tell you it was hot. I'm going to get to that in a bit. But so yeah, that hotel was great. It's slightly away from downtown in the part of Nashville called Music Row. So that's where all of the recording studios are. Super cool to see like Sony and MGM and all these other record labels and just to walk around. Pretty cool places. The Virgin Hotel, really good brunch. We were walking distance there. There's another restaurant. I'm trying to remember the name and it's not coming to me. That was really, really good for brunch. There's a Hattie B's chicken around the corner. That's like a huge thing if people are interested in like that Southern chicken and that Southern style of food. But there's also Hattie B's in other places as well in Nashville. So Motif on Music Road, that's where we stayed. Would definitely go back. Would definitely recommend it. Great service, super clean, brand new, great amenities. Love that pool. Now to some of the places we went where we were having lots of fun, different restaurants and different places that we went. So if you're unfamiliar with Nashville, the number one place to go downtown is a street called Broadway. And that is where you're going to find all of the bars, all of the big restaurants, all of the rooftop patios, all of the live music. And so I'm just going to name a few of the places that we really liked. I'm going to name maybe a couple we didn't love as much. But I will say, like, it all depends on what you're interested in. It all depends on maybe what you're not interested in. And these things change too, because you could love a place because the band was so great, but that band doesn't play there all the time and they might move places. So I do have some suggestions as well, but the 1230 Club, that is Justin Timberlake's restaurant and bar. That is right at the top at 5th and Broadway. We had a really good dinner there. There was some live acoustic music. And most of these bars are multiple levels. So the music and the vibe changes depending on where you're staying. So the middle floor, the second floor was, and they had like a full band with like trumpets and saxophones. And then the rooftop patio was really, really cool. They had a DJ there, really good vibes there. So we had lots of fun. I'm going to sneeze. Okay, there you go. We also went to, like, I'm just going to name a bunch of these. These are all on Broadway, but I'll give you the addresses. We loved it. Luke's 32 Bridge, that's Luke Bryan's bar. We stayed there for most of our first night. There was a really great band playing. There were some people who were doing line dancing that I was like, they were just guests. I was like blown away. I watched them probably more than I watched the band. Really good music. We went to Margaritaville. That's 322 Broadway. Sorry, Luke Bryan's was 301 Broadway. Margaritaville is really fun. If you listen to Sirius XM Satellite, Margaritaville XM Country station, they actually record live from Nashville. I think it's Friday afternoons. We were there on Friday afternoon, which was super fun. It was a really cool atmosphere. Morgan Wallen has a new bar. It's just off of Broadway. It's called This Bar. It's 107 4th Avenue. Again, really cool vibe. They have 3 different stages. They have a rooftop patio, lots of different bars. It's huge, but it's super full because it's a very popular place. All Red was cool. That's Blake Shelton's bar. That's at 300 Broadway. The place, there's also some like more historic places, like, so no rooftop patio, not multiple level. Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, that's one of like the main staples, and that is right adjacent to the Ryman Auditorium. There's just like a little alleyway that separates them. And the Ryman Auditorium was the original Grand Ole Opry. So there's a lot of history in that place. We went there during the day, which you totally can, and you can hear it still incredible live music from the most talented people. So that was a cool place that we went to. We also went to Jason Aldean's Kitchen and Rooftop Bar. That's at 307 Broadway. And we had some good food there, sort of like honky tonk bar stuff. And the place that we probably had the most fun. So this is another question. Like, what would you say was the most fun you had aside from the concert? The Zach Bryan concert that we went to. And I would say Friends in Low Places, which is Garth Brooks Bar, we had a blast. So it's a bigger venue. Some of them are a little bit smaller, some of them are bigger. It has a huge stage. We were there early enough to see sort of the opening act, and then they have a later act. The people that we saw were called the Curves. Go follow them. They're so much fun. If you're in Nashville, check out where they're playing and go there, because they played a bunch of different bars on Broadway. Friends in Low Places, we heard the Curves. They were doing all sorts of requests. They sang all sorts of songs from like Mariah Carey to Shania Twain to Justin Timberlake to Garth Brooks to Sublime. They were singing all sorts of genres, and they made all of these songs sound incredible. Their band was really, really good. And the lead singer, her name's Roz. She was so much fun. She made it like, she reminded me of like a young Gwen Stefani. Like, she was awesome. So anyway, that was probably my best part, was just dancing and singing my face off and like not caring who's around, not worried about what I look like, just like having a good old fashioned time, fun. That was it. So definitely check out the Curves, check out Friends in Low Places. And like, if you're not familiar, like Broadway, and on the weekends, it's extra super busy. They close down the road. So it is very, very full, but it is one big street and you can go in and out of all these different places. So like, we went into Kid Rock's bar, didn't love it as much. Weren't so much into like the heavy metal, grunge, super rock music. So then we just left. And then next door is a totally different bar. And right, like we went in Alan Jackson's bar. I didn't enjoy it. It was very like old school country. Again, I told you I'm not an old school country fan, but we had a couple drinks. We had lots of fun. I enjoyed my soda water and we moved on. Right. So that's the type of place, the type of vibe. It's laid back, it's chill. It can be whatever you want it to be, right? If you want a DJ, you want that up-tempo music, you head up to a rooftop patio. If you want that sort of lower vibe, chill vibe, you're going to find a bar that's playing that kind of music, and everywhere in between. A couple other things that we did do a river cruise. So in Nashville, there is a river called the Cumberland River. We learned that it's a working river. It runs into the Oklahoma River, the Mississippi River, and it's big, it's huge. So there was this big boat cruise that we went on. You could choose to eat or not. We ate before. There was like a buffet. We did not want to do that. But it was beautiful. You could do an evening cruise or daytime cruise. We did the daytime cruise, and they did all sorts of music from the legends of Nashville. So they're singing like Elvis Presley and Dolly Parton, all the way up to more recent times. And those musicians, again, so super talented. We really enjoyed it. We enjoyed being out on the water. We saw some protected areas where there's more wildlife. We saw the downtown core from the perspective of the water. We got to drive by the stadium where the concert was that night, and that's actually where we heard some of the warm-ups and the run-throughs. And that's how we found out that Casey Musgraves was actually performing her song with Zach Bryan. So we had a little sneak peek into that action, and we enjoyed it. I would say definitely do that if you're looking for like a chill, cool experience. Ryan's parents really, really loved that part. And especially if you're into country music and you want just something like that's super fun but like chill and not bachelorette party, on a bus screaming woohoo. So we loved that. And we also did a little bit of shopping. There's an area in Nashville called the Gulch. That's where a lot of the shops are. 12th Avenue South is a street that has a bunch of different shops. I went into a store called Blush Boutique, among many others. That's where I bought this Nashville t-shirt that I'm wearing. I really liked the vibe, and a lot of these little boutiques. It reminds me of some of my favorite shops in Toronto and even here in Sudbury, like Stitch and Stone, with just like a Southern little flair. And yeah, so those were some of the things that we did that we really liked. I will get into a couple of things that we maybe would pass on. So if you are a fan of country music, if you're a fan of Nashville, if you ever watched the show Nashville, you would have seen a place called the Bluebird Cafe on the show. And that's where these up and coming singer-songwriters were discovered. And it's actually a real place. And it's actually a place where real, now famous singer-songwriters were initially discovered. So it's this tiny little hole in the wall. When I tell you that, like, there's literally like a dry cleaner next door. It's in a tiny little strip mall. It is nowhere near Broadway. It is really like this tiny little place, but they still do play music, and you could purchase tickets for the shows. Because we didn't know exactly when or what we were going to do, we didn't get tickets. And so when we went to say, okay, like, let's go, the tickets were sold out. And they said that they do sell some at the door, or they do allow some people to come in at the door, but that wasn't guaranteed. So we thought, well, let's go and let's see. We did not get in. So I would just say, if that's something that is of interest to you, I mean, Post Malone was just there. I think it's made it blow up a little bit more. But if that's something that you want to do, definitely get your tickets in advance. Definitely, make the things that you want to do a priority. Don't leave those sorts of things up to chance. It is a bit of a ways out of the way. So you're going to have to take a cab or an Uber or rent a car. Don't wait out, especially when it's super hot, like it was for us. We were just like out there waiting. There are some other things we could have done. So that is a don't for me. It was cool for me to see the building. We talked to the person at the door. He let us just like go in for a second just to see the inside. But I mean, that was time that we could have spent doing something else. So that's a don't for me. Another thing that is a word of caution is that, and I knew this, okay, I knew this, is that you need your ID wherever you go, and you need a valid, non-expired ID. So I knew this. Someone had told Ryan's mom, they check IDs everywhere, quote, even if you're ancient. Okay. And so Ryan's mom was like, even if I'm ancient. So first night we get there, we're like, okay, let's just change really quickly. We're going to head down. We're going to go listen to some music. I just brought a crossbody, put my credit card, put some money, put some lip chap, forgot my ID. So please do not go down to Broadway and not bring your ID, even if you're quote unquote ancient. Like I thought, I'm 40, my friends. I have been 21 for a very long time. And no, they are very strict about that policy, even to the point where I got there the next time and I had my ID and I was so proud, like, okay, friends, I did not forget my ID. Turns out my ID expired on my birthday. So that was April, or it was June. My bad. Again, total. These are things to check. Check your ID. Of course, I checked our passports before we left. We wouldn't have been able to go. Check your IDs. Make sure they are valid, because in Canada, you can use an expired ID as a photo ID to get into like a bar, restaurant, or to use at the liquor store. Not in Nashville. Okay, so I ended up having to use my passport to get into places. Not something that I wanted to do, because of course that document is very, very precious and, very important. And so I really had to guard it and be very careful with that. So that's a don't. Don't forget your ID. Make sure it's fully valid. So that's another little tip for me to you. And it happens, right? Like you're focusing on all these things. I didn't get anything in the mail. And again, this is totally on me. Should have checked. So this is why I am passing this information along to you. The other thing that I will say before I wrap this up is just the timing. We went for the concert, which was June 29th. I would not recommend going in June, in July, unless you have to, or unless there's like a reason, like a concert or something for you to go. It is stinking hot, my friends. So stinking hot. And we enjoy walking. We are all mobile, and like I would prefer to walk somewhere and see different sights and be outside versus like take a cab or an Uber everywhere. But it was like 43 degrees Celsius, and like you walk out and you're just like dripping in sweat. So we definitely got our steps in. Like some days there was 22,000 steps. But it was really hot. And that's why that rooftop pool at our hotel was like so refreshing and so welcomed. But if you can go at a time that's not as hot, it might be a bit more enjoyable. All of the bars, all of the restaurants, of course, have air conditioning. But to be outside and to be able to enjoy the weather a little bit more, or if you really enjoy super hot weather or it doesn't affect you as much, then by all means. But that would be my only other point of advice, is to look to the weather and see if that's something. Because even when I was packing, when you're in your house, it's not as hot, or you're in air conditioning, you're like, yeah, this dress seems like a great idea. When it's 45 degrees and you're wearing that dress, it is not as good of an idea as when you're sitting in air conditioning packing up. So just that's one more point, one more little point to offer to you. A couple of restaurants. We went to a great restaurant, a taco place called Bakersfield. It's 201 3rd Avenue South, just like one block over from Broadway. Amazing tacos, really good margaritas. We had spicy margaritas. So like they chop up like habanero and jalapeno peppers, and they make all of their juices, like their lime juice, their pineapple juice, all of that in-house. So very good, very delicious. We enjoyed very much. I'm just trying to see here if there's any other questions that I haven't answered yet. Last thing I'll just say, and I have talked about this, but the concert was freaking phenomenal. We had so much fun. That was the reason for our trip. It was the Saturday night. It was at Nissan Stadium, which is a football stadium. It was super hot again. It was not a covered stadium. There was no roof that came over. So it wasn't air conditioned, super hot. I ended up just wearing like a bralette because I was dying. I had my Nashville t-shirt on. I was like, no, we cannot do 2 layers today. This is a 1 layer or less situation. But everyone, it was like such a good vibe. We loved it. And Ryan especially was like just grinning ear to ear. He was in heaven. We might have been like the 5th people in the stadium. We had to be there right away. We had to be right in there, the merch stand, get all the t-shirts, get the hats, get all the things. But he put on a great show. And even like the opening acts, we really liked it. So if you are thinking, if you're on the fence and you want to go to a different venue, different concert date, I totally recommend. Like I said, a couple years ago, I didn't even know who Zach Bryan was. And now I'm totally into it, totally loving it. And I would go to another concert if someone was going to give me tickets. 100% I would go. So that's pretty much it, I think. I would definitely recommend going, seeing, conquering the streets of Nashville. Even if you don't think you're a country music fan, even if you're not a drinker. I had a couple drinks, but I was basically on my soda water and lime, twisted lime. It was stinking hot. I really just enjoyed the music, the vibes, singing, dancing, having fun with people that I love. And I would totally do it all over again. So that is this episode. Let me know what you think. If you've been to Nashville, did I give an accurate portrayal? If you haven't been, are you going to go? You can send me an email, or you can send me a DM on Instagram. My handle is Andryanna G. That's ANDRYANNAG. And of course, like, share this with a friend. If you have someone's getting married, it is the #1 place for bachelorettes. So share it with them. Share it to your socials, and let me know what you think. I'm going to end with just one more quick quote from our friend Raymond Hollowell with working with the law. This is within the chapter called The Law of Thinking. And just to close, like, your thoughts really are super powerful. So here it is. If your ruling mental state is upward bound, that is aspiring, harmonious, and positive, all your forces will be directed into constructive channels. But if your state of mind is downward in tendency, that is discordant and negative, then almost all your forces will be misdirected. So the life and the experience of man of woman, none perhaps exercise a greater influence than the ruling state of mind. Mental attitudes are the result of ideas, and these have their origin in points of view. Therefore, by seeking true and natural points of view, you may secure the best and most superior ideas, and these in turn will determine the predominating state of mind. Okay, so you've heard the saying, seeing is believing, but in fact, what we believe determines what we shall see. So it's not seeing is believing, it is believing is seeing, my friend. And so I will leave you with that. Believing is seeing. So what thoughts do you have? What can you put some energy into? What can you believe in order to move into action and see that result, see it come to fruition? If I can do it, you can do it. So until the next episode, I love you. I thank you so much for tuning in, and take good care.